Listen, I know we're 2+ weeks away from the first week of the regular season, and I'm just kind of surprised it hasn't struck midnight for CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys or Aiyuk and the 49ers right now. What's your assessment of what's happening there?
Well, midnight is the key word. It's a deadline-driven business. Anytime you're talking about high-stakes negotiations, the two sides have to have a general understanding of when the chariot turns into a pumpkin, when it's time to get the deal done. Because if you move to your bottom line position and there's still time left, you will be squeezed off of it. So both sides, assuming that in Aiyuk and in Lamb's situation, you can throw in Jamar Chase as well, that they understand when midnight arrives. That's when the deal gets done. And one of the things we've heard from Jerry Jones throughout training camp and the preseason, there's no urgency to get CeeDee Lamb back in the building now. So they don't have midnight as start of camp, week one of the preseason. Midnight for them presumably is when they begin practicing in earnest for the week one game at Cleveland. So I'd say a week to two, somewhere in there, probably after the final preseason game. There's a break that the players have, maybe next Thursday, Friday, around there, but in advance of getting to work when everybody gets back together after that post-preseason break to get ready for week one at Cleveland.
So now let's break them out one by one. What is the holdup with Aiyuk? What's happening?
Well, I think what's happened is with Aiyuk reportedly, and I have no reason to doubt this, saying no to trades to the Patriots or the Browns who were teed up, it's the Steelers or he stays put. And since the Steelers came in reportedly, and I've heard nothing to disprove this either, less than the other places, I think the 49ers woke up and realized, hey, if all these other teams are willing to pay this guy more than what we're willing to pay him, maybe we should pay him more. And I think the 49ers have been hiding behind this notion that, yeah, he's a number one receiver, but we don't use him like a number one receiver, so we can't pay him like a number one receiver. Well, other teams are willing to pay him like a number one receiver, so you should too. And I think the longer this lasts, the harder it is for him to go anywhere but where he is. Because think about how difficult it would be, Rich, to plug and play Brandon Aiyuk into Arthur Smith's offense with new quarterback, and we don't know who the starter is going to be in Pittsburgh yet, new teammates, new coaching staff, new terminology, new everything, moving across the country. I think the closer we get to week one, the harder it is to pull that off. But I can't imagine at the end of the day, the end result being Brandon Aiyuk grabs his helmet and plays for $14.1 million this year. I feel like it's got to be at a minimum a new deal or a trade. It can't be 14-1.
So what's the holdup with CeeDee Lamb? Is it the annual per year not being north of Justin Jefferson, Mike?
Well, APY is always the first factor that we look at. And I think from the player's perspective, generally, and I've talked to players about this over the year, the idea is that's the way you measure your worth, your value within the locker room, across teams. What's my APY, new money? And Jefferson's at 35. Where do the Cowboys want to be? Shame on the Cowboys for not getting the deal done before Jefferson got paid. It's always sensible to do these deals early because the numbers always go up. There will be other factors that come into play. When is the escape hatch on the contract? When the Cowboys went through this with Amari Cooper a few years back, 5 years, $100 million contract, $20 million a year. After 2 years, they were going to cut him until they traded into the Browns, and that's when the market went haywire. In hindsight, $20 million a year looks pretty good. So it's how many years are they going to be committed to CeeDee Lamb, the guaranteed money, how much is truly guaranteed at signing. Those are all factors, but APY looms over this, and 35, more than 35. I don't know that he justifies more than 35 or even 35, somewhere around AJ Brown, 32 maybe, but it sounds like he's holding firm for 35, and we'll see what Jerry's bottom line is when the clock strikes midnight, whenever that may be.
Yeah. When is that, man? I mean, they're in Cleveland in 2.5 weeks. You know what I mean?
It's got to be Labor Day. It's got to be no later than September 2nd. It's got to be, because that's when you start practicing. How are you getting the guy ready to play in week one if he's not there? But, remember 1993, Emmitt Smith skipped the first 2 games. The Cowboys lost both, and then Jerry finally caved, and they won the Super Bowl that year. So it could last into the regular season, but I'd be shocked if that happens. I think Jerry wanted to milk this for all the attention it's worth, and then he'll know at the right time when to move the chips into the middle of the table and get this done.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.